There's a weirdo locked up in prison. He climbs the walls every single day, but it's not to break out, it's to build up his body when others are out for exercise. He's lifting weights when others are resting. He's throwing punches even when he's working. He takes the heaviest possible load and puts it all on his own shoulders. When it pours down rain, he runs through the mud to build endurance. High-intensity bodyweight workouts go on one set after another. The reason he's so desperate to get stronger is actually simple. It has nothing to do with hope or freedom. It's hatred, pure hatred. Before this man went to prison, he was just an ordinary steelworker. He had a beautiful wife and a peaceful life, but this fragile happiness was completely destroyed by a home intruder who acted on a whim, just to cause pure evil. Kyle was out at the time, and he clearly heard his wife's desperate screams over the phone. He raced home like a madman, only to find his wife lying in a pool of blood, with no life left in her. Her clothes were torn, her body covered in wounds. She had been brutally raped and killed. Later Kyle fought with all his might to catch the monster, and went through hell to bring him to court. He naively thought there would at least be justice, but he never could have imagined. The man was from a filthy rich family. All the undeniable evidence was torn apart by the lawyer's lies and the power of money. In the end he was found not guilty and set free. Looking at the proud and mocking smirk on the killer's face, Kyle's last bit of faith. Just as the killer was about to leave the courtroom, Kyle suddenly grabbed a guard's gun and fired wildly at his enemy. Several shots rang out in the stone courtroom. The enemy fell to the ground. He had his revenge, but the real nightmare was just beginning. Kyle was sentenced to life in prison and sent straight to Caravo Prison, a place that strikes fear into every inmate. Here the law is the biggest joke. Human life is worth less than dirt. To survive in this dog-eat-dog world, you either have fists of steel or pockets full of cash. And every rule here, life, death and honor, is decided on a whim by the all-powerful warden. The intake process is like an assembly line. Everything the inmates own is roughly taken away. Kyle was no exception, but even that wasn't enough for the guards. They set their eyes on his wedding ring on his left ring finger, but it was the only thing he had left of his late wife. Kyle refused to give it up, but his resistance only brought a brutal beating from the guards. The ring was eventually ripped off. Kyle was filled with rage but dared not speak. He just stared daggers at the guard. The terrified inmates around him, none dared to meet his eyes. That's the rule in Caravo. Once you step inside, you're less than human. Forget about dignity. The prison is controlled by three major gangs, constantly fighting each other. Among them, under the Russian mafia, there's an inmate nicknamed Mad Dog, a sick freak who gets off on torturing the weak. Billy, who came in with Kyle, was only 21, with a gentle face. On his first night in prison, Mad Dog came for him. What followed was a long public humiliation and torture. Billy's piercing screams echoed through the cell all night long. The guards didn't stop it. They even closed the cell door nicely, because Mad Dog had bribed them all. The next day, Kyle saw Billy's horrific state, and the ugly, unashamed look on Mad Dog's face. It was the exact same look as the man who killed his wife. Kyle attacked Mad Dog in a rage. Guards arrived quickly to break up the fight, but they only held Kyle down and gave Mad Dog a reassuring nod. The outcome was obvious. Kyle was taken away alone and thrown straight into solitary confinement. This hellhole is known as the prison within a prison. Filthy water flowed across the floor. The stench was unbearable. The walls were covered in dark bloodstains from those who fought to death before him. The food was a disgusting paste not even a dog would eat. He only had a stone slab to sleep on right next to a stinking pipe. After days of inhuman torture, Kyle's mind finally broke. He tore strips from his prison uniform, braided them into a rope to hurt himself, but the rough fabric made even dying impossible. In total despair, he slammed his head against the wall. His vision went blurry. If he didn't die the first time, he'd do it again, until his forehead was bloody and raw. Half conscious, a moth flew in from nowhere, circling in front of his eyes, refusing to leave. Then it landed gently on the cold, rotten bowl of food. Kyle picked up the bowl without thinking. The moth flew up again, this time landing on the spoon, as if showing him the way. Maybe his wife couldn't bear to see him fall, so she turned into this tiny creature to give him a sign. She would never let him give up like this, so Kyle didn't hesitate. He swallowed the rotten food bite by bite. When Kyle got out of the hole, the guards still weren't done with him. He was taken to a special cell. 3 of the 4 iron beds were empty. The guards told him the only remaining inmate was a psychotic killer who had murdered the last 3 roommates. If he didn't want to be the 4th, he had to pay. Then they shoved Kyle inside. Once the door closed, Kyle finally saw him, a huge towering black man with no humanity in his eyes. After a terrifying night, Kyle gathered all the money he could find, went to the guards and begged for a new cell, but they mocked him, saying it wasn't enough. He had no choice but to swallow his anger. Later he learned the prison openly ran a capital game with human lives as chips, bloody fighting tournaments, the only allowed way to move up. Winners gained status and privileges. Losers were often beaten to death on the spot. The guards and warden didn't just know, they designed the whole system and were the biggest gamblers. They collected huge bets and bribes, turning murder into a violent business. Mad Dog was the undefeated champion of this bloody arena and the warden's most profitable weapon. Crossing him meant challenging the prison's entire profit system, but revenge came fast. Mad Dog's men dragged Kyle away. Under the watch of the guards, they gave him a public beating. Afterwards, Kyle was thrown back into solitary. Clearly they wouldn't let him die. They'd just make him suffer worse than death. The worst torture came from the weather. When it rained, water flooded the cell, mixed with filth, turning it into a sewage pool. He had nowhere to sleep, and the stench was overwhelming, making the torture unbearable. He didn't know how many days and nights he survived. When he came out, Kyle was broken and empty, looking like a beggar. He endured it all, but staying quiet didn't keep him safe. It only made Mad Dog bolder. During lunch, Mad Dog walked up to Kyle's table, spit in his food tray, tray, then ordered Kyle to wait for him that night. Kyle knew if he backed down now, he'd lose far more than dignity. If he faced it bravely, even if he died fighting, at least he'd prove he was a man. What did he have to fear? Guards rushed over. No questions, no investigation. They immediately charged Kyle with disturbing the peace.
Going inside for a long time.
This solitary stay made Kyle realize everything. Hell has its own rules. Only the strong survive. Only winners make it to the end. To keep the last bit of his humanity, he had to master ultimate violence. After that day, he started training like crazy. No equipment, so he used the prison walls, iron bars, floor, punching bags, heavy objects, running track, anything he could find, to build his body and will. As he grew stronger, his eyes turned colder and colder. After months of inhuman training, he stepped into the fighting ring. His opponent was his old enemy Mad Dog. As soon as the match started, Kyle was stunned by a heavy punch. A violent knee to the body followed, putting him completely on the defensive. Mad Dog pressed the attack, but Kyle took every hit, until he finally saw an opening. He threw a hard punch, then a second, a third, fighting back wildly. Unfortunately, Mad Dog had more experience, and quickly turned the tide. Kyle was no match. Mad Dog lifted him up, and slammed him down with a suplex, then drove his knee into Kyle's temple. Kyle's vision blurred. In terrible pain, he took a sharp kick to the body. Finally, Mad Dog grabbed his leg, and slammed it into the bars. At that moment of life and death, Kyle kicked Mad Dog as hard as he could in the groin, then lunged forward, and bit through Mad Dog's carotid artery with his teeth. When everyone finally reacted, and pulled him off, Mad Dog was already bleeding heavily, dying instantly. The whole yard fell dead silent. Only Kyle, covered in blood, let out a beastly roar. Inmates, guards, and the warden, all were shocked by the bloody scene. After this fight, Kyle became the new fighting king of the prison. His style had no technique. He just took every hit with willpower. Every blow from his opponent, he absorbed with his body, then hit back twice, 3 times, 10 times harder, until his opponent broke. Under the rule that losers die, he climbed a blood-stained path of bodies, step by step to the top of power. Now he had a neat slicked back hairstyle, cold hard eyes, and intimidating presence. He was like a mafia godfather who ruled the prison. While Kyle sank into violence, Billy only had one thought in his resistance: escape. He tried to break out again and again, caught again and again. Every failure brought crueler punishment, but he never gave up. His last chance was within reach. He used a stolen key to open his cell door, about to grab a hidden pair of pliers, when guards caught him red-handed. Billy's fate was horrific. The guards handed him over to a brutal brute. When Kyle saw him next, Billy was barely alive. In his final moments, he told Kyle,
"Don't let them turn you into something you're not."
With that, Billy took his last breath. Until death, his soul never surrendered, never got corrupted. Kyle finally understood. He saw the true nature of violence. It brings no real victory. It only turns you into what you once hated. Another fighting tournament began. His opponent was the brute who killed Billy. Facing his enemy, he chose to do nothing, letting the man beat him without fighting back. The warden was furious. He lost face in front of his wealthy patrons, lost all his bets. In a rage, he hung Kyle from an iron frame in the middle of the yard. He'd be cut down only when he agreed to fight. Otherwise, this would be his gallows. But this punishment struck like an axe, hitting the abusers themselves, day after day under the burning sun and pouring rain. Starving and dehydrated, Kyle was extremely weak, but no matter how much pain he felt, he refused to give in. At first, inmates were confused and mocked him, but slowly they saw in Kyle a different kind of strength, and began to wonder, why do we kill each other? For the warden's amusement. Why do we go from victims of violence to consumers and accomplices? Out of fear, greed, or numbness, the idea of awakening grew stronger, until it spread to everyone. Gangs stopped their meaningless fighting. No one stepped into the ring anymore. The inmates' peaceful, silent protest made every rule built on fear lose its power. The warden's bloody business collapsed completely. Just like that, Kyle never threw a single punch, yet peace defeated violence in the most unexpected way. What's more, the warden couldn't kill Kyle.
If we kill him, we turn him into a martyr.
The warden wasn't stupid enough to let Kyle become a symbol to the inmates, so that day the warden released Kyle and arranged a public execution. A smart ruler never gets his own hands dirty. He unleashed his most powerful attack dog, a 7-foot-tall monster, whose humanity was destroyed by drugs and torture. When the collar was removed, the giant charged at Kyle, breaking his bones and tearing his muscles. That's the humiliation the warden wanted. He wanted everyone to see. Any form of resistance, violent or non-violent, would be swallowed by greater violence. The right to live or die had to be held firmly, in the bloodiest way. At the edge of death, Kyle instinctively tapped the iron door. The giant heard the sound and let go involuntarily. It turned out every time he was in solitary, someone tapped the wall next door, and Kyle always tapped back twice. No words, no faces. That's how they knew each other. Spiritual companions through suffering. He never imagined that inmate was the giant before him. The giant had mental damage, but he recognized the tap. He reached out and stroked Kyle's cheek with his huge fingers. The warden watched in shock, seeing his intimidation turn into a joke. He ordered his men to execute them both. To protect Kyle, the giant charged the guards through bullets. Using only brute strength, he knocked the guards down, even crashed through a thick iron cell door, before collapsing. This tragic scene ignited the anger of all inmates. They burst out of their cells, attacking the guards wildly. The whole prison erupted into a riot. Some destroyed property, some set fires, others ran for their lives in chaos, until the warden called in armed forces and used gunfire to violently put down the riot. During the riot, Kyle didn't take sides. Instead, he went to save his black roommate. It turned out the man wasn't a bloodthirsty killer as rumored, but an underground cleaner. He hunted targets who exploited legal loopholes and continued their evil acts in prison. Then the black man pulled out his real secret, a diary detailing everything: how the warden turned the prison into a private slaughterhouse and a dirty money empire. Every life, every payment was recorded. He handed this life or death notebook to Kyle, telling him to take it out and expose the truth. As for escaping, the black man already had a plan. He told Kyle to fight one more match, win or lose, to restore his shaken authority after the riot. The warden would definitely have him killed. The path from the arena to the execution site was the perfect chance to escape. Soon Kyle had his final fight against the brute who killed Billy. After several rounds, Kyle killed the man the same way he killed Billy, slamming him into a wooden post. Billy's death was finally avenged. Just as the black man predicted, Kyle was led to the execution site. As soon as they entered the garage, the black man who'd been hiding in a secret passage rushed out. Together they quickly overpowered the guards. Kyle finally got his wedding ring back. The black man handed him a uniform and car keys, but chose to stay behind. He had a mission he had to finish himself. Soon Kyle drove through the gates. Guards saw the warden's car, stood straight and saluted. No one dared to check. He drove away, pretending to be the warden, in the warden's own car, carrying evidence that would end him, heading toward dawn and freedom. Meanwhile in his office, the warden faced his final judgment. When guards broke in, they found him covered in blood, all his teeth pulled out. The warden was brutally beaten to death, and that's the end of the movie.